Hello and welcome back to the Angerati studio at Utility Week Europe. I'm joined by Paul Glass, who's the metering change manager at Anglian Water, and Paul is one of the speakers at the conference. And there's it's a really interesting presentation where actually I'll let Paul explain it, but it's essentially about bringing the displays, which you said are traditionally at the end of some drive down a hole somewhere, which no one can see it, into the home. And you said the framework about what you're trying to do with that.
Okay, a lot of people here at this conference would be familiar with the concept of an in-house display where you can get real-time information into the kitchen where people can use it, where mum can see it, where the kids can see it, and when dad sees it, he usually blows a gasket. Well, in the water sector, of course, getting a bill is something that's a bit of a rare event. Happens every 6 months, and it usually contains information that the customer produced 6 months ago. And there is little awareness of water usage. And so what we're trying to do is to ask the question, if you were to get real information, real-time information about your water usage, just like the energy sector is doing, up close and personal to the customer, would it make a difference? And so what we have done is we have gone to the market with open hands to say, look, we know nothing about this. We can see that in the energy sector there is some growing experience about this aspect of customer behaviour, but can you make it work for water? Now, the chance that we have come across has really come from the meter that we have chosen to buy. And the meter that we have chosen to buy is a one-way radio meter, manufactured, it happens by Elster. And this one-way radio meter information spits out information every few seconds or so, which is designed to capture our meter reader who goes past in his meter reading van or walks past, not once a week, not once a month, but every 6 months, which is why it has to be every few seconds, because he only walks past once, and if it's only every few seconds, he's unlikely to miss one.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Which means that there's a lot of data that this meter yields, which maybe the customer can use.
Right. And how far are you in this project? Has it been going for enough time for you to have some data points in terms of testing the theory? Because I sense what you're trying to do is by bringing this information up front and central there to facilitate some behavioral change from the end consumer.
That's right, yeah. Like a lot of water companies, we're trying to spend quite a lot of money to sell less of our product. And because we're quite challenged in Anglian Water, we serve a lot of the east of England. So where we are with this is that we have gone to the market, said, look, we need some help with this. We have contracted with Green Energy Options, a company near Cambridge, and they have developed their thinking from the energy sector and an existing product to come up with a device which will listen to our radio meters. The first hurdle to overcome was, can we hear the meter inside the house? Now, for the energy sector, that's pretty easy with respect to the energy sector because their meters are usually powered and they're nicely inside the house. But of course, our meters are not. They're usually out in the pavement. And I'm just a civil engineer, but even I know that...
You've got a physical...
Yeah, well, even I know that if you want to suppress a radio signal, a good place to put it is right at the end of the drive, underground in a wet box, which is where our meters are. Yeah. So how do you get that information, those radio signals inside the house? The first trial we did showed that reliably you cannot hear a boundary box meter, and the vast majority of our meters are in a boundary box, which is in a wet box at the end of the drive. But still we have this exam question, as I call it, which is, can these in-house displays make a difference in the water sector? So what we've done with Green Energy Options help is that we conducted a second trial where we took a few, about 20 or so internal meters, real internal meters that had radio meters inside, and we tested those to see if they could be heard reliably, and they can. So where we are with this is that this month we'll be taking delivery of these of around about 11,000 of these devices, and we'll be distributing them to customers over the next few months. And this time next year, I hope we will have some results. So to answer your question, where are we? We are about to start the hard bit.
Right.
Been through the design, going to take delivery. We're then going to measure the success of this by looking at water consumption before and after having deployed these in-house displays.
Because it's a pretty kind of unique thing, the way we consume water. I mean, a friend of mine said it'd be like going to a petrol station and saying, listen, I'm going to give you 60 quid a month, but you don't know what I'm going to take out the pump when I turn up. You know, so it's trying to balance that out. You obviously don't go into a rollout project like this without having crunched the numbers, done the modeling and everything. What's your best case scenario? What are you looking at where you like go, you know, that just beat everything we thought?
Well, the customers will tell us that. The limited focus group feedback we've had is that they want one, which is very encouraging. But I mean, the proof of the pudding is going to be in the eating, which is how much do these customers use before they have one of these things? How much do they use afterwards? And does it last? And does that last over a sufficient number of customers to make us sit up and say, okay, well, that's working for our current test patch, which is just for internal meters. Do we want to roll this out? Is it going to provide for us the reduction in demand that we seek? And if it does, then the challenge that we will face, that we will look to our suppliers to solve is, now can you do this for our boundary box meters? And these are the ones
that's a whole different investment equation, isn't it?
Yes, and I've just been walking around the conference here and I posed that question to one or two quite well-known names out there, and they've scratched their heads, I have to say.
Yeah, I'll bet, because under the ground water, all the stuff that retards any radio waves, you've got it all to play with.
Yes.
So what would you consider the tipping point? And you know, I appreciate the fact that you may not be able to give me concrete numbers, but in terms of a percentage, where's the tipping point where you say, you know, if we can see this? And you mentioned another thing, which is, sorry, so my question is kind of in two parts, which I was quite interested in, and it comes from the energy sector, where there are certain areas where, you know, you kind of get sort of almost consumer data fatigue. You know, they're seeing this thing all the time, and then at what point do they tune out of it and go, you know? So the question is in two parts. What length of behavior are you looking at? And the other one is the percentage of reduction. Okay,
percentage of reduction. If we get a reduction and it's statistically significant, and don't ask me what that means, but there are my colleagues who are way beyond my pay grade who'll be able to tell me that. If there is a statistical difference, I don't think it'll be more than 3% drop. And if we get more than that, then I'd be absolutely delighted. If you were to go from a customer who is not metered, and 30% of our customers don't have meters, and this is often forgotten by the power sector, so they have an unlimited supply of our product. If you just go from an unmetered property to a metered property, you might expect a reduction of between 5 and 15%. With one of these things, if they were to work, if we can get another 3%, then that's good value. Yeah. Because it's also, I mean, you know, I live in London, so, you know... do you have a meter? I don't. you come to a place like this and you don't have a meter.
No, it's because we live in, and this is a slight segue, in one of those bizarre properties where the entire water mains runs through our neighbour's house and only forks at the back. So, you know, I can see why we don't have a meter. Not, I don't want one. I'd love to have one. But I know full well that you know, some of the challenges, because you know, there's a big talk in the UK about creating a grid of water supply and things like that. So even a 3%, yeah, a 3% reduction of consumption for your customer base is pretty huge as well. Isn't it?
If we can apply it to all our customer base, then we would be delighted for that. I mean, it is an issue about trying to use less, and it's not just in the water sector. We must all try and use less, and if we can persuade our customers to love every drop, as we are trying to persuade customers to do so, then that's probably most of the battle. But at the moment, we're not there yet. And these in-house displays, maybe they have a part to play. Yeah. So, you know, as far as this conference is concerned, I come here with open hands to say, I don't know if they do, but we're going to give it a whirl and let the world know if it does.
Well, that's a pretty. I hope you succeed. You know, because I do think we need to be much more conscious of the limited resources that we've got, and hopefully we can do this interview next year, and you know, we just keep reporting on the story. That'd be a great thing to do. Paul, thank you ever so much for making the time, and thank you for joining us. And that's all we have time for today. Thank you.